Welcome to the podcast where we celebrate innovation for a happy planet. I am your host, Abigail Carroll. Did you know that the mussel, the snail, and the octopus share a common feature? The esophagus runs through the brain. Today we are traveling to the Netherlands where we meet Mieke Roth and Paul Schilperoord of Anitomical, a company addressing an educational market with new tools to facilitate the study of animal anatomy, thanks to their intricate 3D digital models. Mieke and Paul are starting with marine life, including mussels, sea squirts, and others, but they hope to grow their library to encompass much of the animal kingdom. How far can they take this? Let's hear it from them. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I'm delighted to have you both here. You have a company called Anitomical, and you're in the Netherlands. What does Anitomical do?
We are opening up animal anatomy via 3D models that are reviewed by experts.
Can you elaborate a little bit? What is a 3D model of an animal and what kind of animal?
At this moment, mainly the animals that are available for comparative anatomy education. So from amoebae until frogs and birds and so on. And we are building digital models in a way that are easily viewable and accessible for a lot of people. Imagine the models you had in classrooms that are cut open and you can see the internal organs and so on.
Yeah.
But we are doing it digitally. So those models, but then up to date.
I've seen them. They're colorful and you can see veins, you can see blood circulation, you can see the different organs, and it looks like you can go through different layers. Why is it important that this be digitized, and how is that helping?
Well, at this moment, a lot of anatomical education is done via dissection classes, and via books with photos and illustrations. And there is a loss of education, of anatomical knowledge within educators, and a loss of educators in general regarding this. So what we are doing is getting it out of the books and show an actual anatomy model, so you can see the internal organs as they are in the live animal.
How did you get to understand the biology of these animals?
I have a background that matters regarding this, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years now. So what I do, if I start working on a model, I first try to get as much information as possible regarding the animal itself. But I also dissect them myself, and I use a lot of scientific literature to get to a model that is accurate enough to go to reviewers, and they then give a lot of comments and I adjust them accordingly.
So can you dig in a little bit more and really describe the process, soup to nuts, of how these digital renderings are made?
Basically, I work as a scientific researcher, but my output is visual. And what I do is I work in a 3D application named ZBrush. That's basically a digital clay program. So you can sculpt in it and you can model in it as if you are working with physical clay. What I do most of the time, I start working on the overall anatomy. So I choose one of the features that can incorporate everything else. Like, for example, for a mammal, it's more logical to use the skeleton as a base. But for a mollusks, it's more logical to use the skin as a base. So you need to have something that can embody the rest of the organs. And then I go organ by organ. I investigate, I search for papers that are connected to it, that are in depth on that specific organ or organ system. And I try to model it as good as I can regarding that. When I have a basic understanding of the anatomy of that specific organ system, and I have incorporated within the whole animal and incorporated it within all the other organ systems, I hope I'm able to get an animal, a specimen. And I'm dissecting that specimen to check if I'm correct. And most of the time, that results in more modeling, more detailing, more researching for specific features that are in scientific research papers and so on. And when that is done, I am optimizing the model in such a way that I can upload it towards a review application we have. And I pull the model apart in organ systems, and I make separate files for the organ systems. And I annotate them, and I then send them to reviewers. So I say, is this specific feature, what I'm doubting about, correct or not? And if so, if it isn't correct, what did I do wrong? And so on. And I go back and forth with such a reviewer, and then finally a model is good enough to get into the application. So that's basically it.
You find the research, you're compiling research, you're having peer review. How long does that take, like for a snail or mollusk?
It depends on the complexity of the animal. But for example, I did and I have to look it up, what the normal name is in English. Siona, that's just a moment. In English, it's called a sea squirt, and that's a very unknown animal, but it isn't that complex, but it has features that aren't generally known. So that took a few days to dig into, but in total it cost me 2-3 weeks to finish that one. Oh. But I also have models that take months to finish.
You're trying to bring this to schools. Is this a graduate school thing, or are these undergraduate or high schoolers? What's your market here?
We first targeted BSc students, but it can be targeted for anything. So from now, kindergarten is a bit too soon, I think, but high school, university, college, and so on.
Yeah. How is this 3D model changing the way we think about this type of education? Is it more interactive? Is it more fun?
It's more accessible because a lot of the education regarding anatomy of animals, to be precise, is based on illustrations and so on. And it's harder to imagine the anatomy of the animal itself in its environment and so on. Yeah, I'm thinking out loud right now, but it's, first of all, there are less educators that can educate people regarding anatomy. animal anatomy. And second, we are more used to be in a digital environment. We don't want to dissect animals anymore. So we don't want to use animals for education or something because, we don't want to hurt animals also.
So it's interesting. We got two problems. One, there aren't any the sheer number of educators is evaporating. And, potentially if everybody were just dissecting all these animals, we'd be losing animals too. So if we hurry now, well, there's still that educational knowledge about anatomy, and we can create a legacy product, basically, these legacy drawings that can continue this education and save animals moving forward.
Yeah. That's it, basically.
How did you get inspired to do this?
It's basically the thing I've been doing all my life. I've always been interested in how things work. And anatomy is one of the most interesting subjects regarding this, because there are so many different solutions for the same problem. Every needs to eat, every animal needs to reproduce, every animal needs to live, react to its environment, and so on. And there are a gazillion solutions for this. And the other fact is that those solutions shape the animal. So you have a function that shapes the form and form that shapes the function. And that's, I think, amazing.
Yeah, and studying those solutions, so comparative anatomy becomes very easy when you have 3D models of those animals at your disposal. So in the application that we built, you can load in two different animals, so any animals of which we have a model, and completely study the anatomy and very easily compare the anatomy between those two different species.
You can also see why some animals are related and why some animals are further apart, and you can expect certain features within an animal that is a species that is related to another species you have as a 3D model. So you have more insight in why things happen and how things happen.
For a blue economy to thrive, people need to use more sustainable products. But which products? And will consumers actually adopt them? Innovators like you are hustling to figure this out. Spark number 9 can tell you if there's demand for your product. Spark markets your product before it's built using online advertising so you launch smarter. Have a big idea? Vet it with Spark before you build. Visit Spark online at www.sparkno9.com or find them on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so it's for scientific research, as Mieke just explained. But it's also, for example, biomimicry. There are all kinds of technical solutions that come from nature. And also in medicine research, for example, animals are studied a lot.
We just actually had a whole podcast on biomimicry, which was really fantastic. Consulting firm here in Paris that is building solutions for like very specific problems for big industrial companies, either in aeronautics or all sorts of different industries, starting with the study of finding a solution in nature, which is such an interesting concept to me.
Yeah.
So getting back to the business, you've developed a whole slew of these models. How many animals have you detailed so far?
So 16 models by the end of March are implemented in the application. And there are a lot more behind the scenes that are in development.
Yeah. It sounds very complex to make them. So you're trying to pitch this as an educational tool. This is a business. Yeah. And how is that going? How has the response been to this? Are people understanding the value of having this digital tool that sort of conforms to our new lifestyles? I mean, I can see students looking at that on their phones. They're interesting. You can move them around.
Yeah, exactly. So our first target market is universities. So we started that level of education. And we already did a couple of trial runs, some pilot projects here in Holland at the Vrije Universiteit. And also at the University of Plymouth in the UK. And the response has been very positive. So both from students as well as from the educators. That this really makes it easier to understand animal anatomy. And of course, it's different depending on the animal. But for example, we did some trial runs with dissection of a squid. And if you cut open a dead squid, everything just falls flat in front of you. Everything is more or less the same color, same texture.
Good point.
So it's very difficult. If you've never done that before, it's very difficult to find out what you're actually looking at. So the students used our 3D model in the application to find the organ systems that they were looking for. And the feedback that we got is that it helped them a lot to find that. And it was easier for the educators as well, because there are less and less well-trained educators which have really the in-depth knowledge to do dissection classes with a whole variety of animals. So they struggle too sometimes to do these classes. So it's easier for them as well. And in Amsterdam, here in Holland, at university, they are looking to replace a number of dissection classes with the use of 3D models. So that's very interesting.
Yep.
We are talking with more universities in Europe at the moment. They're interested to implement our application with the first number of models. Yeah.
Very interesting. So what does it take to get this up and running? Have you had to raise money? Is this a project that you're able to do on the side? What do you need now to make this work?
Yeah, so we are a startup company and we started more or less on the side. For Mieke, it's her profession. So she's been doing this.
Like a passion project.
She's been doing this, but also professionally, more from a freelance role for the last 12, 13 years. I joined much later. And for me, I started doing this on the side of my regular job. But in 2024, we got some financing from a regional investment company in the Netherlands. And that enabled us to work in the past year or a bit more than a year to develop the markets, to develop our application, develop more models, do market research, reach out to universities and potential clients, potential partners. So we did a lot of different things. We have some first clients lined up now, so universities. But now, we need to raise more finances to develop this further. And also to develop other markets as well, because purely education is the first market. But we can move to other forms of education as well. So that you can think of education of professionals, for example, like veterinarians who work with animals. Because there's a whole field there as well. In human medicine, the use of human corpses for dissection has been replaced, not fully, but to a large extent by 3D digital models. And we could do the same in education for veterinary schools, but also for veterinary practitioners who want to get some more in-depth knowledge of the animals they have to treat. And the knowledge, there's a lot of knowledge available, but it's hidden in textbooks, in papers, in photographs, in scans, and all kinds of data. And we can present that much more easily through 3D models. So that's another market we want to explore.
Although you do kind of hope that the veterinarian has done some dissections, because you want to make sure he cuts or she cuts the right the right thing out.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that, of course, they have this in their education, but not necessarily for each type of animal. Maybe you get a bit of a more exotic pet in your practice. Then you have to have that knowledge at the ready. And the same applies for zoos and aquariums, by the way. So we've been in contact with a couple of zoos and aquariums as well. And they struggle with this as well. If they have to operate some exotic animals, they have to search for the anatomical data and also find someone.
And it's probably from the 18th century, like A, B,
Yeah.
Just see those old drawings.
But they also have to look for someone with the skill set to operate on that animal. So there are cases where, for example, a tiger needs to be operated on, and the veterinarian who does that maybe normally operates on cats. And they just extrapolate from, it's a bit bigger, it's cat-like.
Yeah.
Look up the data that is available, and they do their best. So there are all kinds of specific areas where we can support veterinarians.
Yeah. So let's take an animal that's protected. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a zebra, or I don't know, or an elephant. How do you go about putting the model together for something like that, assuming you're not going to go dissect an elephant? How do you create the model?
There is an enormous amount of scientific papers regarding most of the animals that are needed to be developed in 3D. And we have a vast network of specialists also on almost any animal you can imagine.
Wow.
It's a question of searching for the information. So it comes from papers. Sometimes it comes from quite old sources like books, because there was a lot of studies have been done, of course, over the past couple of centuries. So sometimes the best information can be in a book from 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's also, there are scans, of course, scans, CT scans, micro CT scans available of all kinds of animals. But to read those scans it's difficult. It's a specialized job. So but Mieke knows how to do that and to incorporate that information into the model.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the end product of 3D model is much easier to read and to understand.
Yeah. Basically, you need to be a standard modeler. A standard 3D modeler can't do this because he or she doesn't have an anatomy knowledge. And you have to have the scientific knowledge to be able to do this also.
So it seems like you are in a very unique position to do this, but it also sounds like a lot of responsibility. Because it's really important that these be super accurate and we get it right. And it sounds like you're proposing a vast number of different animals in your sort of encyclopedia. How far do you want to take it?
As far as I am able to, as far as our clients want to have, basically.
So you add an animal on a demand basis? Is that how you'll work? Or how are you going to choose?
The first thing we started is to have a group of animals developed so you can have an actual comparative anatomy feature regarding this. And that were mollusks. So we developed a squid, an octopus, 2 snails. And was that it? Just a moment. And and a mussel. So all those are basically mollusks, but they look completely different. What we did is put them together, standardized colors for the organ systems, and an application that enables you to compare them side by side. So you can see, for example, the brain of mollusks is very specific because the esophagus runs through it. So you can see that in any mollusk you find. You can see it in an octopus, in a squid, in a mussel, and in snails. And that was the first group of animals we did. And from there out, we tested it on universities, and they said, we want to have marine animals in it. We want to have fishes. We want to have sea urchin and so on. So all those animals are basically the animals that are in the comparative anatomy curriculum on almost every university, college, and high school. And from there out, if we run out of animals, then we can go on demand and so on.
Very interesting. So you're raising money and you're trying to get new university clients. Is there anything else about this that we should know that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so
Is there any aspect? Yeah.
Of course, we're reaching out to clients because there are a lot of universities around the world that all teach biology and marine biology.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reach out to clients, also to even better understand their exact needs, because it varies from university to university, how they work, what kind of classes they give, where this can be applied. And so we're looking for more universities, more clients, of course, but also more potential partners. So we're very interested to work with zoos and aquariums, but also in the wider veterinary field. It would be interesting to see where the exact needs are, because we talked to, of course, a number of potential clients and partners in the veterinary field. And you can see that there are really very specific solutions that are required now and then. So we are still partly researching that. So it would be really interesting to hear back from the field where the needs are. Also for the types of animals, and also the specific needs for the solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this a competitive landscape, or are you creating a new category in the animal kingdom?
Yeah, it's not completely new, but the quality, it lacks quality usually, what has been done in the past. So either the models are not, let's say, not good enough, not detailed enough, not accurate enough, or in some other cases, there have been individual projects, often at universities, where they maybe make one model paid for by a grant, but then when the money stops, the project stops as well. And the model just disappears. It's not available for the wider scientific community.
Interesting.
In a way, this is, quite revolutionary. You can see this in the human medicine field, the human medical field. You can see the use of 3D, very accurate, detailed 3D models of the human body. But for most animals, it doesn't exist at all, or the models are not very good. And if they're not accurate enough, then they're not of much use for veterinarians, for example, but also not for scientific studies.
This is so important that we capture this, especially if we're losing the human skill set to dig into this and to be able to continue to pass that along. Yeah. So thank you for that. You're now seasoned entrepreneurs, and you're the first company that I've interviewed that is really focusing on an educational product. Do you have advice for other people that aren't quite as advanced as you are in their project for their startups?
So do you mean generally or in the educational field?
Whichever. It could be both.
Maybe it's general, but I think it's very important to really get to know your client and the struggles of your clients very well. You really need to know where you can make sure you have an added value, that you really solve a problem for your customer, rather than just being a nice to have. And that's sometimes that can be challenging, because even if you have a solution for something, the problem needs to be urgent enough for the client. So that is really something you need to research very well. And also how your client works and why and how they would be able to spend money for your product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mieke? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's basically it. Know your clients, and depending on the clients, adjust your marketing strategy and know what price strategy you need for those. Because the educational market is a totally different market than consumer market or business to business market.
Yeah. All right. I think that sounds like good advice. Thank you for coming on today. And I'm sure viewers are going to be I'm sure listeners are going to be interested to hear about this beautiful work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting us.